We will start the 16th lecture now. Before the session, in fact, we already explained, analyzed and compared various Dharma practice methods in lecture 14. After comparing so many Dharma practice methods, how should we choose from different methods to increase the success of our Dharma practice? There are many types of practice methods. If we choose a practice method indiscriminately, even though this method has been practiced for a long time, it can still fail to reach the goal. This is due to the mistake we make in our choice. If we choose correctly, we may save a lot of time, energy, and also achieve our goals. Therefore, when we choose from these methods, we must measure the success rates. But this raises a question, which we explained in lecture 15. Do these different methods of practice involve different religious sects? How should Dharma practitioners face and choose from different sects? Can these sects merge into one? Also, will the regular recitation of the Kshitigarbha Sutra result in one's being connected to hell, and can Buddhism be free from sectarianism? These issues have been covered in lecture 15. More questions are brought out from lecture 15, which will be explained in today's session. What other factors will affect the results of our Dharma practice? Our goal has been set. Will it become unachievable in the end? Is there anything that will affect us? Are there any correct procedures we can follow, so that we will not be prone to errors and failures in Dharma practice, or not completely waste our time in vain? These will be explained in this lecture. Before that, let us review the lecture videos that have been posted on the YouTube channel of the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, if you would like to watch the visualization practice of compassion and Bodhicitta series. The first lecture provides the correct explanation of the Bodhicitta of emptiness, oral pith instructions on the great perfection, and the fallacies of the crazy wisdom. The second lecture teaches the visualization practice of initiating the programming in entering into the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood. This lecture is too important and brilliant to be missed. The third lecture provides the oral pith instructions in attaining the Dharmakaya Buddha of the teachings on the key of life and death. The fourth lecture is about the teachings on the key of life and death, 2. The oral pith instructions in attaining the Sambhogakaya Buddha, and the oral pith instructions and detailed explanation of the visualization practice on Heart Sutra. I have clearly explained in the titles as to what oral pith instructions can be used to attain the Dharmakaya Buddha, and what oral pith instructions to attain the Sambhogakaya Buddha. The fifth lecture is about the teachings on the key of life and death, 3. The oral pith instructions in attaining the Nirmanakaya Buddha, as well as a comparison on the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices between the Great Perfection and the Heart Sutra. The first and the second lectures have been translated into English, dubbed into English versions and put onto YouTube. Only the first and the second lectures have English translations. The third lecture and others have not been completed yet. Since I said in the titles of the third, fourth and fifth lectures what oral pith instructions can be used to attain what kayas of a Buddha, about 3 months ago I received an email which asked a question. This question is the mystery of the ages. No one knows how to answer it. As the English translations are only available for the first and the second lectures, and the third, the fourth and the fifth lectures have not been dubbed into English. Therefore he asked this question by just looked at the titles of these lectures. I will explain in detail later. What is this mystery of the ages? The sixth lecture is about the comparisons among the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices in the daily life by the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the Great Perfection. The seventh lecture explains the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice on the nature of the 5 aggregates as emptiness in the Heart Sutra. The eighth lecture teaches the oral pith instructions of the visualization practice for the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness of the Great Perfection in the daily life. The ninth lecture explains how to use emptiness to visualize compassion in order to detach from emotional sufferings. The 10th lecture is about what is the difference between the Dharma practice of abiding in notions and that of non-abiding in notions in the Diamond Sutra. The 11th lecture explains why does one thought of pure belief in the Diamond Sutra bring immeasurable virtuous merits. It has another title, The Method of Accumulating Immeasurable Virtuous Merits is in the Diamond Sutra. The 12th lecture is entitled Buddhas are omnipresent, but why do they still need us to recite their holy names before coming to our rescue? It is about the conditions required for different Dharma practice methods and their respective results. The 13th lecture is entitled What is the method with a high success rate to be reborn in the Buddha's pure land? The 14th lecture teaches the key to being reborn in Buddha's pure lands and the Diamond Sutra method to avoid being possessed. The 15th lecture clarifies, will the regular recitation of the Kshitigarbha Sutra result in one's being connected to hell, and can Buddhism be free from sectarianism? The 16th lecture today is about the mystery of the ages derived from obtaining the 3 kayas when becoming a Buddha, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. Why has it been the mystery of the ages? It is indeed a mystery of the ages, because even many great Dharma practitioners do not understand the meaning of it. Master Padmambhava taught it this way, but no one knows how to explain it. The cause of this mystery of the ages is derived from the email we received 3 months ago requesting us to explain this mystery of the ages, which we will do in this session. We will briefly summarize the key points from the past lectures. Remember, if we do not have compassion, we cannot be reborn in the pure land of the Buddha. There are 2 steps when we cultivate our compassion. Mercy is to give others happiness, while pity is to remove others' suffering. The first and second steps are the most basic of all our Dharma practices, but there is no such a practice for Hinayana practitioners. They only have the renunciation, the determination to leave this world. They are determined to become a monk to practice the Dharma for themselves. They do so without cultivating compassion. As such, their highest achievement is liberation from the cycle of karmic existence, or samsara, but they cannot become a Buddha. It is because they do not cultivate compassion. Why should we cultivate compassion? Because compassion is the foundation of our bodhicitta, and bodhicitta is a characteristic of the awareness. We must rely on a little of this innate compassion we are born with and cultivate it slowly. After a certain period of time, when the compassion has been cultivated more maturely, the kind of awareness, or the bodhicitta, will arise. If you fail to cultivate compassion, you cannot cultivate the awareness. Failure to cultivate the awareness means you cannot cultivate the bodhicitta. Then it is impossible for you to become a Buddha. Therefore, one cannot become a Buddha without bodhicitta. So, what is bodhicitta? It can be divided into 2 types for people to understand it easily. One is called the relative bodhicitta, referred to what you say in the world. The other is called the absolute bodhicitta, which is the true awareness. The relative bodhicitta is divided into 2 types, bodhicitta of aspiration and bodhicitta of action. Aspiration is to make a vow to help other sentient beings. Of course, it includes helping ourselves, and we must put into actions. We must take the bodhisattva precept before we can be regarded as truly cultivating the relative bodhicitta. We have already put the essence of the bodhisattva precept onto YouTube for you to watch. And the most extraordinary practice of the awareness is to balance the middle way with precepts, meditative concentration, and wisdom, which must be led into emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, in a state of neither existence nor nothingness. I have already explained a little bit before, and will gradually explain it in more depth in the future. However, Dharma practitioners usually practice only the 1st to 4th steps. Some people only practice mercy and pity, cultivating their own compassion. They fail to succeed in the Dharma practice, having practiced many hundred lives. This is due to their chosen methods being slow and lacking the 5th step. They have not cultivated the awareness, so it will be very slow. They have to practice the Dharma for 2 to 3 great asamkhya kalpa. That is, countless reincarnations. After hundreds of thousands of kalpa, there is no way to succeed, because the 5th step of the Dharma practice is missing. So, when you choose the method of practice, you must include all the elements from the 1st to the 5th, so that you can succeed quickly. We have also provided the teachings on the key of life and death. It means that our entire journey in samsara is divided into 6 stages, 3 of which are about the situations we will encounter after death. If we understand these 3 situations, we can actually help ourselves to get rid of all the constraints, and not be forced to reincarnate in a painful situation. These are explained in the 1st to the 5th lectures of our Compassion series. You must watch them to know how to prescribe the right medicine for the right disease. Since the 6th lecture, we have talking about the bardo of this life, the state we are in now, or the state we exist in this world now. How should we practice the Dharma? How to prescribe the right medicine for the right disease to save yourself. We have been talking about this since the 6th lecture until now. From the 2nd lecture, we have taught a method to practice all elements from step 1 to step 5. This is an essential Dharma practice method, and it is impossible for you to learn elsewhere. Why? Because other people do not understand it. Why is the teaching of such a Dharma practice so important? Because it includes a method of initiating the programming in entering into the Dharma realm. If you do not initiate this program at the right time when you die, and enter certain states, you will find it difficult to act in a timely manner. That is, it will be too late for you to work things out and fall into a situation where many opportunities are lost. Consequently, you will continue to reincarnate without knowing what kind of beings you will be and in which realm. So, this is a very important teaching method, and no one else has taught it elsewhere. Why? Because all of these are methods of practice that can only be taught through the realizations gained from actual practice. What is realization? Realization is a kind of awareness. It is the degree of realizing and knowing that enable one to directly experience the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. For this kind of realizing and knowing ability, you have to reach a certain level such that you can comprehend the profound truths in the Buddhist sutras. You will find that Buddhist preachers, without such kind of realizations, will be too awkward and unable to speak when they explain certain important principles. This is because they do not understand many of the truths. That is why many people, who have studied Buddhism for decades and read many Buddhist sutras and commentaries fail to explain many phenomena, do not understand the sutras and cannot comprehend the Dharma taught by those Dharma preachers. It is because their realizations are not up to the level, so they do not understand. They do not have the realizing and knowing ability to understand, especially the realizing and knowing ability of emptiness. So, this teaching is very important for you to revisit. When do we need to initiate this program? Every time, when we transition from one state to another. For example, when we just wake up from sleep, emerge from a meditative state, or when we are during a session of meditative concentration, or when we change from one state to another, the Dharma nature, that is, the awareness of the Bodhisattva will suddenly appear. But you may not be able to merge into this state of realizing and knowing, that is the realizing and knowing of oneness, so there is no way for you to attain Buddhahood. Hence, you will withdraw from and fall back to the more confused state. Therefore, we must initiate this program prior to the transition, so that we can experience this kind of realizing and knowing. How can we train in our daily life in advance, so that we can master the procedures for initiating the programs of entering into the Dharma realm more easily in the future? What actual practice must we have for our Dharma practice in our daily life in the 3 realms in order to help arouse and maintain our own realizing and knowing? How can we do it? We have been talking about these since lecture 6 until now. We need to restore this realizing and knowing, also called the intrinsic nature, the Buddha nature, or the Dharma nature. It has many names. The correct name is the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment, a realizing and knowing ability, without any deviation, 100% correct. We also call it Bodhisattva. If you are able to restore it, even it is not 100%, it will be enough to help you to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. If you can restore it 100% to the realizing and knowing of oneness, you can become a Buddha. If you want to use a Buddhist sutra to explain what kind of state it is when you enter into the Dharma realm, you must use the Heart Sutra. If we want to carry out some corresponding training in our daily life, to help ourselves regain the realizing and knowing ability, we must use the Diamond Sutra. If you want to cover all 3 different situations, including daily life, practicing meditation, before sleep or entering a meditational state, in a hope to summarize the complete practice, and oral pith instructions, you need to apply the Great Perfection. It is the Great Perfection from the oldest sect in Tibetan Buddhism, also known as the Red Sect, or Nyingma school, to be able to explain it thoroughly. Let's talk about the Diamond Sutra first. What is the Diamond Sutra about? The Diamond Sutra describes an elder named Subhuti, when he rose to ask Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, if a sentient being aspires to have Anattarasamaya or bodhicitta, as I said earlier, arousing the most extraordinary bodhicitta, that is, wishing to become a Buddha and restore the 100% of the realizing and knowing ability. If I wish to become a Buddha and restore the 100% of the realizing and knowing ability, how should I cultivate my mind? He asked, how should their minds be abiding by? Where should my mind stay? How should their thoughts be subdued? My mind has many deluded thoughts. How should I vanquish it? Then Lord Buddha Shakyamuni offered 2 oral pith instructions. One is should not abide anywhere, and another is do not abide in notions. What are these 2 oral pith instructions? It means that if you want to vanquish your deluded thoughts, you must realize and know that all deluded thoughts are temporary displays of the Dharma nature. They appear very briefly and will disappear soon. They are very short-lived. Everything in the world is like this. It will pass. Your life is very short and will end soon. A life can be lost as the broad-leaved epiphyllum only lasts briefly. So, if you want to subdue your mind, please remember not to cling to any notions, appearances or forms, any thinkings, or any views. Do not develop any attachment, either. To what extent does this unattachment mean? We will teach this in the future, when we talk about how to practice these oral pith instructions in daily life. In fact, the degree of attachment in response to should not abide anywhere in different situations will be different. The score can be calculated. This will be taught in the future. This oral pith instruction is in fact one of those that explain emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. What does emptiness, neither existence nor voidness mean? It is not existence, but it is not that there is nothing either. What is it then? The fact is that these 2 oral pith instructions only explain the state of the neither existence aspect in emptiness. It is an oral pith instruction of the aspect of neither existence. The nor voidness aspect has yet to be mentioned. Should not abide anywhere means not to be attached to any notions, appearances or forms. Not to abide in notions means the same. Because all notions, appearances or forms are only temporary displays of the Dharma nature. They are not real, but will constantly change. These notions, appearances or forms are not real, namely, neither existence. Indeed, the 2 oral pith instructions have only explained the aspect of neither existence. What about the aspect of nor voidness? There is a separate oral pith instruction for the aspect of nor voidness. What does the oral pith instruction of the nor voidness aspect of emptiness describe? In fact, this will be mentioned in the second half of the Diamond Sutra. I have only taught about 1/3 of the Diamond Sutra now, nearly half of the Diamond Sutra. The second half has yet to be taught. Why has it not been taught after such a long time? Because I want to teach you well how to apply these oral pith instructions to your Dharma practice, so that you can apply them thoroughly in your daily life. I need to explain the structure and steps in detail before teaching the second half. This is the better arrangement. If I only explain it once lightly, I think it will not be effective. I must teach you how to apply it, as I know that it is useless to only explain it literally. Even if I explain it well literally, it will not work in the actual practice, as you do not know how to apply it. That is why I need to teach it slowly. Now, speaking of this sentence in the Diamond Sutra, it turns out that as long as you can come up with a single thought of pure belief towards any sentence of any chapter in the Diamond Sutra, you will make all Buddhas know your existence and gain immeasurable virtuous merits. But there is one condition. One thought does not mean just thinking about it. This one thought needs to meet the following conditions. It is necessary to enter the state of emptiness, that is, no longer abide in the notions of a self, of others, of sentient beings, of longevity, of Dharma, and of non-Dharma in order to work together successfully. This is the oral pith instructions of the neither existence aspect of the emptiness. In other words, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions are the oral pith instructions of the aspect of neither existence. Is there an oral pith instruction for the aspect of nor voidness? The aspect of nor voidness has yet to be taught. But at least you are able to believe and apply the oral pith instructions of the neither existence aspect of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Even if it can only be used between one thought, you can already generate immeasurable virtuous merits. This can only be achieved if you have reached a certain degree of recognition and realization of emptiness. These have already been explained in the 11th and 12th lectures of the Compassion series for you to revisit. How can one come up with one pure thought of belief to obtain immeasurable virtuous merits? You must have the view and practice aspects of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Why is it called the oral pith instruction of the aspect of neither existence? Why is it called the oral pith instruction of the aspect of nor voidness? How can one apply them consistently in daily life? All of these must be understood. If you do not understand, how can you apply them to your Dharma practice? If you truly understand it, then you can really come up with a pure thought of belief and obtain countless and immeasurable virtuous merits. If you want to have the views and the practice methods of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, you must have certain level of understanding of emptiness in terms of its view and level. But in Dharma practice, I can tell you, there exist many different views and levels of emptiness. What views will enhance our understanding to help us to enter emptiness? Also, to what level do we have to practice the holy Dharma before we can really generate one thought of pure belief to gain immeasurable virtuous merits, or even become a Buddha? Let's first explain the correct procedures of Dharma practice. If you do not follow the correct procedures and skip certain steps, you will miss a few things and fail in your Dharma practice. No matter how you try your best to practice the holy Dharma, you will fail. And the failure rate will be extremely high. You may even go astray. So, the correct procedures of Dharma practice is very important. If you do not follow the steps, you will practice the Dharma blindly. There are many people out there who follow one or two books they buy to practice the Dharma. They are all practicing blindly. As a result, they make all the mistakes. It would be considered good if the mistakes only get them back to where they were. It would be considered very fortunate. I am worried that you may be doomed eternally due to such kind of mistakes in your Dharma practice. That would be miserable. So, you must be very careful. What is the correct practice procedures? First of all, you must follow the direction of views and follow the views to practice the Dharma. This includes your behavior that follows and shows in daily life. The results, in the end, can be generated accordingly. Therefore, a title is given to this set of Dharma practice methods. For the views of the Dharma practice methods, we succinctly call it the view. Applying a set of practice methods based on the view to practice the Dharma is called practice, or meditation. But in our daily lives, is there a way to practice and reflect the connotation of the view and practice in our behavior? If it can be put into real practice, it is called the conduct. If there are no errors or omissions in the three procedures of view, practice, or meditation, conduct, and all of them are done sufficiently, then the corresponding fruition can be produced in the end. If there are errors in your views, it will be very dangerous. Such a view will affect the three elements. I have said before that we must have three important elements in our Dharma practice. The first is precepts. The second is meditative concentration. And the third is wisdom. What impact will such a view have on us? It will make the precepts we take or observe different. It will affect our meditative concentration, which will be different because of the change. Similarly, it will also affect and make our wisdom different because of the change. Some incorrect views can even make us lose all our wisdom or have a negative impact. That is, there will be a lot of perverted views. Therefore, views are very important and have a profound impact on positioning. Do not determine the wrong position. When you start your Dharma practice, you must see clearly whether your views are biased or wrong. If you choose the wrong views, I guarantee that you will have problems, and that even if you practice for a long time, you will not achieve results. It may also be negative results, and the end will be more miserable than no practice at all. So, this is a very serious matter. If you cannot be clear about your views when practicing the Dharma, it is better for you to practice slowly. Study and have a better understanding of the Buddhist sutras. Listen clearly to other people's teaching and make correct and wise choices. Then start your Dharma practice. Otherwise, you will have problems. Are there any easy-to-understand metaphors that can be used to explain the views? Let me give you an example, as if you are sailing in the sea and you are in control of a ship. Your views is equivalent to a compass. If the direction indicated is wrong, the final destination will be different because of this. And the result will be completely different. Practice means that you are the helmsman controlling the ship, and that ship must also follow your command to sail. You need to turn the rudder before the ship can move. Conduct is the sailing direction of the ship. Where do you want this ship to go? It is completely controlled by the helmsman. Even with the compass, if you steer it carelessly, the ship will also travel in the wrong direction. So, the ship will reflect your conduct. The fruition is your destination. If your compass is pointing in the wrong direction and the helmsman also sails the ship carelessly, the ship will go to the wrong place in the end. Therefore, the process of Dharma practice must be carefully and clearly monitored. View, practice, conduct and fruition are the process of our Dharma practice. If your views are wrong or biased, all subsequent results will be different. As the saying goes, a miss is as good as a mile. So, you must be very careful about your views. The Nyingma school of the Tibetan Buddhism has 4 kinds of views, or insights, which you may have heard, or have the opportunity to find them in books. But the essence and important parts are all mystery of the ages. No one knows how to explain them. When practicing the esoteric Buddhism, or Vajrayana, you must remember that different levels of esoteric Buddhism practice must work with different views and conduct in order to succeed. According to Guru Padmanabhavas, the precious garland of the secret Mantrayana treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment commentary, Guru Rinpoche, is known as the second Buddha in the contemporary era. This was written by him, so we must pay great attention to it. There is currently no other translation circulating. At the time, His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche II, who was one of our 3 root gurus, one of our root gurus was Ven Lama Sonam Chokai Jaltsen, Vajra Master Lao Yuiche, and his guru was H.H. Dudjom Rinpoche II. Although His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche II also passed the Dharma directly to the 2 of us, and was one of our 3 root gurus, strictly speaking, we should call him the Master's Master. H.H. Dudjom Rinpoche II owned this private copy written by Guru Rinpoche himself entitled, The Precious Garland of the Secret Mantrayana Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment Commentary. It was the Tibetan edition of the treasured private copy. In a hope to benefit the sentient beings in the Chinese soil, he made a photocopy of this treasured private copy, with a microfilm, and gave it to Vajra Master Lao Yuiche, our root guru, as a gift. Then Master Lao translated the book, The Precious Garland of the Secret Mantrayana Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment Commentary, into Chinese to be circulated in the world. Commentary means explanation and translation. On page 114 of the book, the 4 views and insights of the Tibetan Buddhism's Nyingma school are mentioned. These 4 views are to be practiced in conjunction with the 4 empowerments. That is, they must be authorized to practice. But you must first complete the 4 preliminary practices, or ingondro prior to receiving the 4 empowerments. What are the 4 preliminary practices? Please refer to the importance of the 4 preliminary practices on the YouTube channel of the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, or available on the internal YouTube channel of the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International. It is the teaching of the 4 preliminary practices, 13 lecture videos in total. The 13th lecture teaches and explains the basic practice of the awareness for our disciples. It can only be watched by certain members of the Dudjom Buddhist Association. It is an internal YouTube video. Now let's analyze these 4 views. The first one, you need to be authorized with the Vars empowerment to practice with this view, which is called the view of the mind only. What is the view of the mind only? As I explained before, it is one of the most important concepts in Buddhism. The key is that everything comes from the mind. You must understand the meaning of everything comes from the mind. What we see now is actually an outcome reflected by the interlinks of our mental consciousness. If our mental consciousness change, all appearances and phenomena will change accordingly. In fact, everything is projected by our mental consciousness, so it is called everything comes from the mind. How do we practice this? It is the Dharma practice based on forms. The title of the practice is called Developing Stage, or commonly referred to as Mahayoga. Maha means big, while yoga is correspondence. So, it is called the Great Correspondence. We have no connection with the Buddha, so we often visualize the Buddha's appearance and the land of the Buddha. Step by step, we visualize from nothing to there as something. Such a process is called generating. The object of visualization changes from being obscure to very clear. This is called arising. The two together are called developing. Stage is stairs. We visualize slowly, from one level to another, until the visualization is clear, as if we have connected with the Buddha and the Buddha's pure land. Consequently, we are able to be reborn in the Buddha's pure land after death. This is the Great Correspondence. You can connect to the Buddha, and the Buddha is willing to correspond with you. Everyone is connected to each other. It is not a one-way connection. When you visualize him, he knows that you are visualizing him and is willing to correspond with you. This can be called a great correspondence. This practice is part of the view of the mind only. Why? Because everything comes from the mind. Do not visualize hell, of course, to be connected with hell and get yourself down to hell. Since all is created by the mind, I can use this projection to get to a good place. This is one of the most important principles of Buddhism. One has to use the oral pith instruction, everything comes from the mind, to achieve this goal. Therefore, it is necessary to visualize the Buddha and the Buddha's pure land. It is to practice the holy Dharma applying the perception of everything comes from the mind, a perception of the view of the mind only. The whole ritual of the Dharma practice is also like this, but is one with forms. Why? Because you are visualizing the Buddha's appearance and the form of the Buddha's land. Thus, it is a Dharma practice with forms. I once said that we must enter the emptiness, and we need to balance the practices with forms and without forms. You will not succeed in your Dharma practice if you only practice with forms. Would you become a Buddha at all? Guru Padmanabhava said, yes. The highest achievement is to become a Nirmanakaya Buddha. Can this kind of Dharma practice really enable you to become a Buddha? You can also become a Nirmanakaya Buddha. What exactly is a Nirmanakaya Buddha? Is it not that someone must balance with emptiness to succeed? To practice the holy Dharma with the view of the mind only must work with one thing. Lacking it will fail. Many people misunderstand and think that they can visualize Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Buddha's pure lands so clearly, with three-dimensional images, so they must be able to reach the Buddha's pure land. How can they not become a Buddha? But the result is that you cannot become a Buddha. The case of the Yamantaka in hell is the most famous. Apart from the poor nature of mind, this Dharma practitioner also had one thing missing. Without it, the Dharma practice was doomed to fail. If you do not cultivate this thing well, you will have a poor nature of mind. This great practitioner practiced well the Yamantaka deity's practice. But the result was that he fell into hell after death. Why? Because if he could not work with this one thing, which I will tell you shortly, with his poor nature of mind and also without that one thing, he would go to take rebirth by following the Yamantaka deity's nature of mind that he visualized. Because of his poor nature of mind, he would be reborn in hell. But because he visualized himself into the appearance of the Yamantaka deity, he was reborn in hell to be one with the appearance of the Yamantaka deity. Hence, the case is referred to as the Yamantaka in hell. What exactly does the view of the mind only need to work with, so that one will not follow his own nature of mind to walk into hell eventually? The missing thing is the oral pith instruction stated in the Diamond Sutra, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. This Dharma practitioner lacked the neither existence aspects, oral pith instruction of the emptiness. The Yamantaka deity he visualized was too real. The fact is that everything is like an illusion. Everything is a projection of the Dharma nature, and cannot be attached to. However, this Dharma practitioner was too attached. He visualized the Yamantika deity vividly and grasped it to be real. But do you not talk about the developing stage, which requires the visualization to be very clear? If the visualization is not clear, how can there be anything arisen? Only generating is not enough. There should be a rising in the Dharma practice to be effective. Does this mean that the visualization needs to be clear? Being clear means focusing on the practice with forms. But he did not work with the oral pith instruction of emptiness, should not abide anywhere, not to be attached to any form. Even the appearance of the Yamantika deity is only the manifestation of the Dharma nature. Therefore, the nature of mind needs to work with the oral pith instruction, should not abide anywhere. Only the non-attaching state can work with the neither existence aspect of emptiness, so that one will not follow his own nature of mind and fall into hell, or become a hungry ghost. This Dharma practitioner could not meet the requirement of this Diamond Sutra's oral pith instruction, and was unable to achieve the neither existence aspect of emptiness. Subsequently, he followed his nature of mind and fell into hell. This oral pith instruction is able to achieve the neither existence aspect of emptiness, not the nor voidness aspect of emptiness. This is correct. As such, one can only become the Nirmanakaya Buddha. Can one become a Nirmanakaya Buddha as long as he can achieve the aspect of neither existence? There is still one thing missing. I used 3 sessions to explain this. When you die, you will be free from physical constraints and then the Dharma nature will reveal. If we can grasp the opportunity, we are likely to accomplish the 3 kayas of the Buddha: Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. One of them is to become the Nirmanakaya Buddha. As for one to become the Nirmanakaya Buddha, the fact is that if we wish to become a Buddha, we can only accomplish it by entering the state of oneness in the Dharma realm. However, if you only understand the neither existence aspects, oral pith instructions of emptiness, but not the ones of the nor voidness, you cannot enter the state of oneness. So, if you rely on the view of the mind only to practice the holy Dharma to enable you to become the Nirmanakaya Buddha, the difficulty will be much higher. This is because you lack certain things. Hence, it is necessary to work with the state after death. So at that point when the Dharma nature appears after death, one practice the developing stage, with the view of the mind only, together with the neither existence aspects, oral pith instruction of emptiness, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. All of these need to work together in order to enable one to become the Nirmanakaya Buddha. In other words, if you only base your Dharma practice on this view, you still lack a lot of things. Do not underestimate what I am teaching now. I can tell you that you will not find it in any Buddhist literature, sutras, tantras or commentaries written by great Dharma practitioners. It has never been taught in this way. All of these come from the actual practices, experience of our own practices, realizations. It seems as simple as you think. But I can tell you frankly that if I do not provide such a teaching to you, I believe no one will know how to explain it. The neither existence aspects oral pith instruction means not to cling to any form, thought, or perception, but to have the realizing and knowing of emptiness, to realize and know that any delusion is merely the temporary displays of the Dharma nature. It does not have an eternal form and will change. So, it is not real. You must understand these principles to be able to practice the Dharma successfully. As for the vase empowerment, is it just the truth of a passage that people do not know how to explain it? I can tell you the principle of why you can become a Nirmanakaya Buddha, which itself is also a mystery of the ages. I will explain it shortly. In fact, many things written by Guru Padmanabhava have not been understood by people. The second is the secret empowerment, should be practiced with the view of the middle way. The middle way is the balance of existence and non-existence. If you practice it formally with a ritual, the ritual would be written like this. First, you need to start with forms, visualizing first the appearance of the deity, before entering the state without forms, the state of emptiness. This is called the completion stage. Why is it complete? Because there is a hierarchy of levels from the ones with forms into those without forms, moving up step by step. If you use the view of the mind only to practice that emptiness I described earlier, you are only able to apply the neither existence aspects, oral pith instructions, but not the nor voidness ones. As a result, there is a shortcoming, missing a few things. Now this practice method can make up for these deficiencies. Therefore, it is called the completion stage. After correcting the missing parts, it can finally be completed. That is why it is called the completion stage, or Ana-yoga. If you practice well and score 100 points, you will become a Sambhogakaya Buddha. But a few things must be coordinated. What are they? I believe that the things I am going to teach now are not understood by anyone. You will not find any even if you search high and low in the bookshops and libraries. No one has explained it before, and I will explain it to you now. That is, it needs to work with the oral pith instruction of should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. Since I am teaching the Diamond Sutra, of course, I will use the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions to explain. If I am teaching the Great Perfection, I will use the Great Perfection's oral pith instructions to explain. If I am teaching the Heart Sutra, I will use the states described in the Heart Sutra to explain. So, now I will use the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra to explain. That is, one must apply the oral pith instruction of should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. But the oral pith instruction of should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions only describes the neither existence aspect, but not the nor voidness aspect of emptiness. Now I will be teaching the oral pith instruction stated in the second half of the Diamond Sutra, that is the nor voidness aspects, oral pith instruction of emptiness. It is not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. Combining the two oral pith instructions is the complete oral pith instruction of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Should not abide anywhere is the neither existence aspects, oral pith instruction of emptiness. It means that everything is not real, so you should not be attached to any notions, forms, or appearances. You will be trapped if you are attached to it, which will lead to a failure of your Dharma practice. If the realizing and knowing cannot be aroused, you will continue to reincarnate. You must have this kind of realizing and knowing in order not to continue to reincarnate. If you are bound to any form, you will be bound by this kind of traction and reincarnate. So, you have to should not abide anywhere, not to be attached to any notions, forms, or appearances, such that you will no longer need to continue to reincarnate. Should not abide anywhere is the neither existence aspects, oral pith instruction of emptiness. Anything is unreal. Do not be bound by anything. You must remember this oral pith instruction, not to continue to abide in notions. Otherwise, you will be trapped. To develop one's mind is the nor voidness aspects, oral pith instruction of emptiness. What does the mind mean? It is necessary to come up with the mind to not to abide in anything. But the mind needs to be aroused. What does it talk about? The mind here refers to an unbiased realizing and knowing, the realizing and knowing without any deviation. Not only you do not abide in any state of actual existence, but you also are able to arouse the unbiased realizing and knowing, then this is the real oral pith instruction of neither existence nor voidness of the whole emptiness. Does this unbiased realizing and knowing have a physical body for people to touch? No, it is impossible. The realizing and knowing itself is not of any substance. As such, the realizing and knowing cannot be touched, so it is part of the nor voidness. That is, the emptiness does not mean nothing, nor does it mean something. All is not real, but a kind of projection, derived from the realizing and knowing. So, it is nor voidness. It does not mean nothing, either. There exists an realizing and knowing, hence, nor voidness. This oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind, is the complete oral pith instruction of the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. You will see that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni describes most of the Diamond Sutra, slowly, on should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. Like me, after so many sessions, I am still explaining should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. Only in the latter half, when the Diamond Sutra is about to end, does he describe the nor voidness aspects, oral pith instruction of emptiness, that is, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. Combining the former and the latter is the complete oral pith instruction of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Do not underestimate my brief 1-minute explanation of emptiness. Without such level of realization, one will not understand the Diamond Sutra, let alone how to apply it, or reinterpret the Holy Dharma by using the Diamond Sutra to work with the Buddhist Holy Dharma written by Guru Rinpoche. The rituals written by Guru Rinpoche do not include oral pith instructions from the Diamond Sutra, only those from the Great Perfection, but not the oral pith instructions from the Diamond Sutra. So, I can tell you that no one has ever explained it. You will not find it even if you go through everything in the bookshops and libraries. And no one can understand it. The one thing they do not understand most is why it becomes a Sambhogakaya Buddha. Some people have practiced the Dharma in a cave for decades in a hope that when they enter a meditational state a Buddha will appear to teach them. Unfortunately, that never happens. They cannot find any relevant teaching even if they go through all books. The third one is wisdom empowerment, which is to be practiced with the view of secret mantra. The aim is to achieve the union of bliss and emptiness. What is the union of bliss and emptiness? It is to achieve a balance of realizing and sensing. The secret empowerment is the practices with forms into those without forms to achieve the balance of both in order to accomplish the Dharmakaya Buddha. But now this wisdom empowerment applies realizing and sensing. Emptiness is emptiness, while bliss is a kind of realizing and sensing. It is a kind of bliss of Dharmata in the Dharma realm. Such kind of bliss of Dharmata is the highest level of ultimate bliss. You may ask, isn't that extreme bliss only referred to Buddha Amitabha's Western land of extreme bliss? No. The Western pure land of extreme bliss still exists within the three realms. Due to the impermanence, it will be destroyed eventually and disappear one day. Therefore, it is not extreme bliss there, even it has been translated into extreme bliss. Only the joy in the Dharma realm is that extreme bliss, because such happiness is eternal and will never be destroyed or disappear. Moreover, the perception of this kind of bliss is beyond description. It is too joyful. You can sense it only if you are able to enter that state. You need to practice towards a balance of realizing and sensing, and emptiness in order to achieve the union of bliss and emptiness. If you score 100 points, the highest level, then you can accomplish the Dharmakaya Buddha. This requires working with emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, although it will be slightly different. But you will not understand even if I say it now. Because I have not taught the Great Perfection, and you are not my disciples, so I will not teach you how to practice. There is no need for me to explain the difference of the two to you. I am only teaching what can be taught publicly on the level where no one can explain it. No one can find this even if he or she searches through all the books. I have already said everything that can be said. What cannot be said has to be left unsaid. It can only be taught to the disciples who have achieved the certain level. I will teach them relevant oral pith instructions and explain how to engage in actual practice. What I am teaching now is the true emptiness, neither existence nor voidness to accomplish the Dharmakaya Buddha. But there is another difference. You need to balance the emptiness aspect of the neither existence and the bliss aspect of the nor voidness. The emptiness mentioned here requires balance in the union of bliss and emptiness. This emptiness is a little different from the emptiness that I have just mentioned, that emptiness of practice from with forms into without forms. This is all I can say and I must stop here. The fourth is called the precious word empowerment, which is to be practiced with the view of the Great Perfection. This view is to apply emptiness, neither existence nor voidness in the Dharma practice to realize and attain the Dharma nature directly. There is no need to go from practice with forms into practice without forms, nor does it need to balance between bliss and emptiness via realizing and sensing. It is to realize and attain emptiness directly. This is the Great Perfection, also called Atta Yoga. The highest achievement is to become the Svabhavakakaya Buddha, or intrinsic body Buddha. You might ask, Guru Master, you have only expounded Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, but you never explained Svabhavakakaya Buddha. It happens that Guru Rinpoche has already mentioned about Svabhavakakaya Buddha in his teachings. So, is that because Master you were lazy and missed the explanation? I have not missed it. I am afraid that by saying too much it will confuse you. It has a lot of deeper meanings. You will not find the explanation even if you look through the books. Not even in all Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's Buddhist sutras. He has never explained it in detail. He may have given a few definitions, but not the profound meanings. For instance, why would one become an Svabhavikakaya Buddha by attaining the Dharma nature directly? Why is this not the case when cultivating the union of bliss and emptiness? All of these cannot be explained to you. Many of the principles that I am teaching are the realized experience from my own realization. These explanations cannot be found in books or Buddhist sutras. A feature of the Great Perfection is that if you practice the 4 preliminary practices, or in Gondro well and completely, you can practice the Great Perfection directly without going through the developing stage, completion stage and the union of bliss and emptiness. You do not need to go through these 3 steps. All you need is to practice the 4 preliminary practices well and completely. Then you can practice the Great Perfection directly. We have been propagating the Buddhist Holy Dharma for 20 years, and we always teach disciples how to practice the 4 preliminary practices. Why? Because the 4 preliminary practices we teach integrate the developing stage and the completion stage, different from the 4 preliminary practices taught elsewhere. The first stage of the 4 preliminary practices we teach does not explain the oral pith instructions and the essence of the developing stage and completion stage until the disciples have practiced the 4 preliminary practices for a long time and have passed the test before deeper teaching can be given. In short, these elements have been integrated in the 4 preliminary practices. That is, the practice of the Great Perfection does not need step 1, 2 and 3, but practicing the 4 preliminary practices well and completely. Because we have embedded the developing stage and completion stage into the 4 preliminary practices. Even if they do not practice the Great Perfection well, they will not fall into the 3 lower realms. They can still use the developing stage, or the completion stage we teach them to enter the high or low levels of the heavens realm. This is an important insurance mechanism to protect our disciples. So, we require them to practice the 4 preliminary practices very well and completely before we teach them the Great Perfection. But this of course still depends on the individual practitioner's capacities and dispositions, and their level of cultivation, before they can be taught, because they will have the opportunity to directly enter the Dharma realm. This is why, after 20 years of propagating the Buddhist Holy Dharma, in the 19th year, we started to expound the visualization practice of compassion and Bodhicitta series. Because we feel that we have been teaching for so many years, and it is time to start teaching the Great Perfection. Prior to that, we need to teach the Heart Sutra and the Diamond Sutra first. One will not understand many things if we go straight to the Great Perfection, without teaching these 2 Buddhist sutras. All will be in vain. Therefore, we must teach these 2 Buddhist sutras first. After explaining the Diamond Sutra, we will teach the Great Perfection. Why teach the Great Perfection? Because we need to help our disciples to successfully connect from the 4 preliminary practices to the Great Perfection. The highest achievement is to become a Buddha. Even if the practice is unsuccessful and they are unable to become a Buddha, they can still apply what we teach them, the 4 preliminary practices that combines the developing stage and the completion stage to enter higher or lower level of heaven's realm. In this way, there is a comprehensive insurance mechanism that covers both high and low levels. We have designed this set of teaching methods to pave the way for our disciples. That is why we designed this teaching method. But we are thinking that if we only teach our disciples, the number of people who can benefit will be small. Because we are very strict. The number of converted disciples is extremely limited. How can we benefit all sentient beings? Of course, the most effective way to disseminate our Dharma teaching is to put our Dharma teaching videos on the YouTube channel so that a larger number of people can benefit. Even if it is to publish a book, 1,000 copies printed for example, only 1,000 people will benefit. Even if the copyright is released for others to reprint, only several thousand people will benefit at most. Now our YouTube channel has more than 210,000 subscribers, so at least 210,000 people can benefit. But there will always be a limit to what can be taught publicly. Even so, You should not underestimate the limited teachings. You cannot find any even if you look through all the books. Because no one has explained it. Nor can anyone explain it so clearly. All is taught with such an analysis of hierarchical structure and reasoning. No one has ever understood to teach like this. You will feel confused after listening to other people's teachings. You may wonder what Dharma principles they are trying to explain. My thought is that we will teach as much as what can be taught publicly. What cannot be taught publicly can only be taught to our disciples. There is nothing I can do. This is in line with your level and what the precepts stipulate. Of course, there is a reason why you are required to observe the precepts. I have explained it before, so I will not repeat here. I think I have already explained it in the previous session. So, the Great Perfection is a unique practice method. One can practice the Great Perfection directly from the 4 preliminary practices, without the need to go through the previous procedures. But this of course also depends on the individual's capacities and dispositions, and their level of cultivation. Okay, what is the Svabhavikakaya? Please refer to the book Emptiness, Neither Existence Nor Voidness, page 115, published by the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International. The explanation in the book is the same as some of the contents you can find in other books. However, I have not explained it in detail and in depth. How has it evolved in terms of its structure and foundation? What is the difference? These have not been taught yet. But they will be when we teach the Great Perfection in the future. I will now explain the mystery of the ages. Let's first review the 3rd lecture of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series. I said that if you are able to apply the oral pith instruction of the teachings on the key of life and death, you can become a Dharmakaya Buddha. The teachings on the key of life and death described then are about the bardo of dying stage. That is, when you have just died, that awareness of the perfect enlightenment, or bodhicitta, will appear for the first time without any form. When you remain in a meditational state, apply the oral pith instructions I teach. In fact, there are many oral pith instructions. There are oral pith instructions in the Great Perfection, and also in the Diamond Sutra. If you can work with these oral pith instructions, recognize this moment being the manifestation of the Dharma nature, and are able to realize and merge into, you can accomplish the Dharmakaya Buddha. This is referred to as the black attainment. You must have the knowledge and be able to recognize it. You can revisit our YouTube channel for detailed explanation. If you are unable to recognize and realize and merge in, it means that you cannot maintain the state of oneness. You will begin to enter a dualistic state. Remembering the word begin, beginning to enter a dualistic state, but not formally. It has started, so there will be a second appearance of the Dharma nature, in the state of luminosity. This kind of luminosity is close to the dualistic state, but not formally become the dualistic state. Why? Because it is just beginning to enter into. If you understand science, you will know that light is a substance. It is the dualistic state, when there is a substance. How is it not a dualistic state? But this is the luminosity of the Dharma nature, a state when the Dharma nature reveals. It is not a light that is made of substances. So, it is not something of a dualistic, or multiplistic state. If at this moment you can succeed in your Dharma practice, you can still become the Dharmakaya Buddha. When I gave this lecture, I did not explain it in such a great depth, because I thought you might not be able to understand so many things at a time. So, I only said so much. Close to the dualistic state was not explained previously. I have now added close, which was not said in that session. Because I did not teach you how to distinguish them. Now I will teach you to distinguish one more time. In fact, there is a difference. When a Dharma practitioner wakes up, he will see the beginning of the formation of the universe, and the division of sky and earth into two, when the Dharmata clear light suddenly appears. This is the second appearance of the realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment. Or, it is the second appearance of bodhicitta. If the Dharma practitioner can recognize, and realize and merge into this light, and practice the meeting of the mother and son luminosity, he or she can still accomplish the Dharmakaya Buddha. The reason for being able to become a Dharmakaya Buddha is because your realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment appears twice during the stage of the bardo of dying. If you are able to merge into it, you can attain the Dharmakaya Buddha. The fourth lecture is about the teachings on the key of life and death, 2. The oral pith instructions in attaining the Sambhogakaya Buddha, and the oral pith instructions and detailed explanation of the visualization practice on Heart Sutra. Why did I explain the Heart Sutra at the same time? Stated in the Heart Sutra, there are neither wisdom nor attainment. To what position does someone have to reach to have the wisdom? Here we say when our Dharma nature formally enters the dualistic state. Not beginning to get close, it is formally entering. You must listen to these words clearly. You will get confused even only missing a few words. Now you formally enter the dualistic or multiplistic state, not only dualistic, but dualistic or multiplistic. You will then start to pull substances in 4 phases: luminosity, combination, wisdom, and all scenes appearing. You can revisit that lecture where I have already explained some keys on it. Even if you look through all books, you will not find the explanation of these Dharma practices. Why does the Heart Sutra state that there is neither wisdom nor attainment? There is no wisdom in this state. But you will find that wisdom only appears in the 3rd phase of pulling substances. This is one of the mysteries of the ages. When I gave that lecture, I did not say that this is a mystery of the ages. You may think that these are things that are easy to know and understand. You may even think that I copied them from some of the books. You do not know why I understand these, thinking my teaching is all from listening to what other people say. People say so and I say so. I can tell you that you will never find such analysis or discussion even if you look through all relevant literature. I can tell you that this wisdom can only be constructed at that moment, but why does the Heart Sutra claim that there are neither wisdom nor attainment? Because what the Heart Sutra describes is the formal state of oneness of the Dharma realm. You need to enter a dualistic or multiplistic state so that wisdom can appear. Wisdom will not appear in the state of oneness. These arguments have never been taught by anyone. In fact, no one knows that I have explained a lot of things on that level. After listening to my in-depth explanation today, you can revisit that lecture. You will know that I already hid things in my previous teaching. Now you have formally entered the dualistic or multiplistic state called the stage of the bardo of Dharmata. This is totally different compared to the stage of the bardo of dying, which is a state of oneness. The stage of the bardo of Dharmata is a dualistic or multiplistic state. For the 5th lecture, it is about the teachings on the key of life and death, 3. The oral pith instructions in attaining the Nirmanakaya Buddha, as well as a comparison on the oral pith instructions of the visualization practices between the Great Perfection and the Heart Sutra. Indeed, no one knows how to teach these practice methods elsewhere even if you search all books in the bookshops and libraries. When I explain the mystery of the ages in a while, you will understand it better. Why do I repeat the explanation so many times? I just want you to cherish what I teach you now. It is not a copy from others or what other people teach me. All of these are an experience from one's own realizations. It reflects the degree of realizing and knowing from the direct experience of emptiness, such that one would be able to experience and realize and know. If you do not believe me, you can definitely look for it. After searching, you will know that I have not deceived you. You really cannot find the answer. When it approaches the stage of the bardo of becoming, you will soon take rebirth. The form of your incarnation will begin to emerge quickly. If you restore the awareness of the perfect enlightenment at the moment the incarnation appears, you can still become a Buddha. In what form will you become a Buddha? It is to become the Nirmanakaya Buddha. Well, about 3 months ago, I received an email on the 25th of November 2018. The content of the letter is as follows. I recently came across Vajra Master Pema Ladran's YouTube channel while searching for information about the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Look at the letterhead. This letter was not addressed to me but to friends of the Dudjom Buddhist Association. He did not know that this letter would be handed over to me in the end. So, this letter was not addressed to me, but any member of the Dudjom Buddhist Association. After watching Master Pema Ladran's lecture videos, I felt very beneficial. Believe him for the time being. You will spot his true colors later. Thank you, Master, for providing such important Dharma teachings. They once again ignited my desire to be saved in this life. After listening to several sessions of the Dharma teaching, I have 2 questions to ask you. Pay attention to the word several. I wonder if any Dharma fellow brother can help answer them. Or can the Master be compassionate to clarify the confusion? This is a mystery of the ages. A large number of gurus do not know how to explain it, let alone the Dharma brothers of the Dudjom Buddhist Association. Because I have not taught them. Firstly, it concerns the situation of accomplishing the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya during the bardo. From previous Buddhist studies, I have heard that one will possess all 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, as soon as one becomes a Buddha. When explaining the bardo, the Master described in what situation, that is, during the stage of the bardo of dying to accomplish the Dharmakaya Buddha, and in what situation, that is, during the stage of the bardo of Dharmata, to accomplish the Sambhogakaya Buddha. And in what situation, that is, during the stage of the bardo of becoming to accomplish the Nirmanakaya Buddha. It seems that the 3 kayas can be separated, and are different kinds of Buddhas. You seem to be saying that when becoming a Buddha of the 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya are separated. This is different from what I heard when I was studying Buddhism, that one would possess all 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya when becoming a Buddha. Is my understanding correct? Is it different from the general perception in Buddhism? He asked me whether what I said is different from what is generally perceived in Buddhism. The meaning of this sentence is that why you did not say that if you become a Buddha, you will possess the 3 kayas of Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya at the same time. In fact, this question is a mystery of the ages. No one has ever known to answer it. Before answering it, I will tell you more. He has a second question. Secondly, I saw a lecture video about fallacies of the crazy wisdom. This was mentioned in the first lecture of the Compassion series. So, I looked it up on the internet about Sojal Rinpoche. This is a lie. It is a pity that such a scandal occurred. At the same time, I saw XXXX Rinpoche. I specifically hide the name of this Rinpoche. I will explain later why I hide his name. There is a very long article concerning this matter, which has a different view from Master Pema Ladran's. He meant the Sojal Rinpoche scandal that caused a stir. There has been a Rinpoche who wrote a very long article to explain this case. I specifically not to disclose his name. He also attached a link in case I could not find it. He specifically provided a link, so I could be directed to the article simply by clicking the link. I can tell you that when I explain things publicly, how can I not understand the situation clearly in advance? How can I go and explain things carelessly? As my teachings will be posted on YouTube, seen by a large number of people, how can I say it so carelessly? In fact, I had already read that article a while ago. But the content was all in English. I am very busy, and it is impossible to use a dictionary to translate slowly. If I use Google to translate it, it is impossible to understand it because the content involves a lot of Buddhist jargons. I would not understand what it was about after translation. So, I asked Master Yeshe, the best translator, to translate it, because he is familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, and has read a lot of English books on Tibetan Buddhism. He is proficient with Buddhist jargons in English. Of course, I asked him to translate. But I am usually very busy. The only free time I have is when I eat. I will rest for half an hour after meal, then start work again after the rest. So, I spent 2 weeks after meals asking Master Yeshe to translate in spoken language, and next to him I took notes of every sentence. Finally, I finished this Rinpoche's long commentary of dozens of pages about this matter. His views are different from mine. Why? I will explain it later when I reach the second point. Also, he said that it causes quite a stir. I have also read the story of the gurus of the Kagyu school, but it is said that the cases of the crazy wisdom are very unique. I had a master of the Kagyu school who described the 4 stages of a Dharma practitioner a long time ago, and I remember like this. First, you must observe the precepts carefully until later you no longer need to observe the precepts, because all of body, speech and mind comply naturally to the path. This is what I call precept of the intrinsic nature. When practicing the precept of the intrinsic nature of the great perfection, one relies on the intrinsic nature as precept. When your intrinsic nature have already been practiced to achieve the 100% of perfect enlightenment without any deviation, your behavior would have reached this level, and certainly you will naturally not violate any precept. Therefore, you do not need to remember to observe any precept, as you would observe precepts naturally. Of course, this is only achievable with an awareness as high as 100% perfect enlightenment. That is, only Lord Buddha Shakyamuni could do it. But he said that this is already achievable in the 2nd stage. I have explained a little bit more here. I originally expected it to be explained in the next session. The next stage is crazy wisdom and finally becoming a Buddha. That is, must you go insane in the 3rd stage? How do you become a Buddha if you do not get mad? Wow! What a statement that requires such a high level of wisdom. I believe I will not be able to find it after going through all the Buddhist sutras. I do not know if the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni would agree with him. I also do not know whether the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni ever went insane prior to becoming a Buddha. After all, what he said caused a stir then. It is said that crazy wisdom is the stage any esoteric Buddhist practitioner has to go through before accomplishing the ultimate enlightenment. Such a statement is indeed an insult to esoteric Buddhism, because they believe to practice esoteric Buddhism one has to go insane in order to become a Buddha. This is incredible. Of course, the crazy wisdom is not something ordinary people today are qualified to do. He also claims that only highly qualified people can achieve it. Whether it is suitable to do it publicly, should someone go crazy publicly, is a big question mark. This is really a big question mark. From here, it seems that things are not so simple. Why does he make simple things so complicated? I do not understand. I know an American disciple of XX Rinpoche. I will not disclose his name, either. This Rinpoche name has only 2 characters, mentioned in the first lecture. Why not disclose his name? You will understand when I explain it in the future. You see that I have given the reason in the brackets, because I criticized him in the first lecture. So, now I hide his name. He has a pure view towards his master's behavior. It is you Master Pema Ladran, who does not have a pure view about him. His disciples have a pure view about their master. This is what he meant. He told me that XX Rinpoche aspired to yield skillful means then and was too selfless to care his own reputation. That he could not care less about his reputation does not mean what he did was right. Crazy people can still do things indiscriminately without caring for their reputation. He was like this, going crazy regardless of his reputation. Do you still praise him for going crazy regardless of his reputation? It is an unreasonable argument for you to claim that it must be good if someone is so selfless to disregard his reputation. How can someone argue like this? He himself and some other students will all benefit greatly in their Dharma practice. Great benefit in their Dharma practice. This is just their own opinion. Whether it is true or not, you can think and judge for yourselves after I have given the correct view in Dharma and explain it clearly later. As for the supernatural powers of the Buddha, I used to wonder why it is said that the Buddha had so many human traces, such as injuries, illnesses, etc. I also said that the Buddha's country was destroyed. All his relatives and friends were killed. These are both stated in Buddhist sutras and in history. But at the same time, the Mahayana Sutras also talk about how powerful and capable the Buddha was. Stated in Buddhist tantras, the Buddha manifested the appearance of the wheel-turning sage king to teach his disciples without any limitation of the human world. Please pay attention to the word manifested. It is clearly stated that he had no limits of the human world, but he would still get sick and injured, etc. Does there exist any contradiction? Can you tell me whether the masters have provided any explanation? It means if the 2 masters Master Yeshe and myself, have ever explained these. Where can I find it? It means where he can find you and Master Yeshe's explanation in this aspect. Finally, he signed his name. I will first reply to his first question, which is a mystery of the ages. People all say that once becoming a Buddha one will possess all the three kayas. However, the Master said in the third, fourth and the fifth lectures of the Compassion series that one will under different circumstance, during the bardo become a Buddha of the three different kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. I did not say this, as a matter of fact. This was told by Guru Rinpoche, but he is asking me now. I will clarify now that these teachings are derived from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, a teaching of Nyingma school of the Tibetan Buddhism. It is not told by me but Guru Padmanabhava. It has also been translated into Tibetan Book of Death, Bardo Thodol, and Liberation, through hearing during the intermediate state. The author is the 8th century Indian master Guru Rinpoche. In fact, not only was he a prestigious master, he was also the second contemporary Buddha Guru Padmanabhava. That is, it is written by the founding father of the Tibetan Buddhism. This is Guru Rinpoche's teaching through the Terma lineage, unique to the Nyingma school. This teaching was revealed by Rigdzin Karma Lingpa, a reincarnation of Chokro Lu Gyaltsen, who was a realized disciple of Guru Padmanabhava, through the Terma lineage, with Terma obtained from earth. Karma Lingpa was born in 1327, the 14th century, while Guru Rinpoche was born in the 8th century. There are several hundred years between the 8th and the 14th centuries. When I talked about Bardo of Becoming during Lecture 5, I already explained the following table in detail from 18 minutes, and 9 seconds, to 20 minutes, and 38 seconds. If you achieve the union of bliss and emptiness, you can accomplish the Dharmakaya Buddha. If you can achieve the union of luminosity and emptiness, you can accomplish the Sambhogakaya Buddha. If you achieve the union of illusion and emptiness, you can accomplish the Nirmanakaya Buddha. Whether you use union of bliss and emptiness or other methods to become a Buddha, you still have to enter the realizing and knowing of the state of oneness. Without entering the state of oneness, one can never become a Buddha. Regardless of whether you apply the union of luminosity and emptiness, or the union of illusion and emptiness method to enter the state of oneness, you will fully possess the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. As I have already said in the 5th lecture, when you become a Buddha, no matter what method you use to enter the state of oneness, you will fully possess the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. It proves that this person has not actually seen the 5th lecture of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta series. He only asks these questions for others. Only 2 of the lecture videos of the Compassion series that have been translated into English are available on the YouTube, the first and the second lectures. The English translation of lectures 3, 4 and 5 have yet to be made available. And this person was requested by others to ask questions. He was requested by the Rinpoche, who I did not disclose his name. This Rinpoche, whose name was hidden by me, has 4 characters in his name. He only knows English and Tibetan. He has watched the first 2 lecture videos, the second lecture in particular, and realized that my teaching even covers this kind of content. There is an opportunity, then, that I know how to decrypt the mystery of the ages. So, he sent this person to ask on his behalf. This person mentioned in the letter that he had watched several lecture videos of mine, how to accomplish the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, before asking questions. The truth is he had not. If he had watched them, he would have noticed in the 5th lecture, at 18 minutes 9 seconds, that I said that if someone becomes a Buddha, he will have fully possessed the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. How could it not be mentioned? The question has already been answered clearly. He said in the letter that my teaching is different from others, as if I did not say that if someone becomes a Buddha, he will have fully possessed the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. He thought that I had not said it, so he used this reason to ask me. It is because this Rinpoche had never watched lectures 3, 4 and 5. With a slight guilty conscience, he was afraid and unsure whether I had explained it in later lectures. So, he added, "Not sure if your master has said it. Please let me know in which lecture your master has explained it. The last sentence is like this. This is showing his guilty conscience. The question was not asked by the person who wrote the letter, but that Rinpoche. He was afraid that I might have explained it. So, he added this sentence. Why did he ask these questions? Because this is a mystery of the ages, and he does not understand it himself. So, he asked me this very difficult question, which has yet to be answered by anyone by far. It has yet to be seen or explained in any commentary or Buddhist sutra. I was worried that this was only the case in Chinese books. So, I asked Master Yeshe for help. Before I gave and explained the answer, I had to refer to Buddhist sutras, commentaries and works by prestigious Dharma practitioners to support my viewpoints. It would be a little troublesome relying solely on my own realizations and experience to explain it. If there are other commentaries to support, there is no need to elaborate, which can save some time. If I rely on my personal realizations to explain it, it will require detailed explanation. Certain things cannot be explained in detail, but can only be taught to qualified disciples. This is stipulated by the precept. It cannot be disclosed publicly. So, I asked Master Yeshe to help search in English books. He started reading a lot of English books when he was 15 years old until now. He has read them for many years. So, I asked him to look for any book that has ever taught in this aspect. He searched for almost 3 months and could not find any. Waiting no further, I decided to answer the question publicly. No one has answered the question at all. Many people do not know how to answer. He was asking on behalf of someone else. So, he asked these questions. The questioners must be from those practice Tibetan Buddhism specifically, and of the guru's level to know how to ask these questions. Ordinary people would not know how to ask these questions. Ordinary people do not know how to ask these profound questions. They cannot even figure out clearly the 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. How would they go further to ask these questions? Only Rinpoche of this level know how to ask these questions. Okay, let's see clearly his questions. Once you become a Buddha, you will fully possess the 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya at the same time. Is there a difference from the general Buddhist perception that one will become different types of Buddha in different situations? In fact, there is no difference. I have made it clear early on. Once you have become a Buddha, you will have the 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. I repeat once more. I actually made it clear in the 5th lecture. This person has not watched that lecture video. But this has brought another question. This is, in fact, the question that Rinpoche really wanted to ask. He should have asked it directly himself. Instead, he attempted to seize the opportunity to distort the fact as if I had not explained it. The fact is that he did not know whether I had explained it or not. Through the letter he asked indirectly this question, a mystery of the ages, that even he himself does not know how to answer. Since one can fully possess all 3 kayas when one becomes a Buddha, why talks about accomplishing different kaya Buddhas in different situations? The question should have been asked like this. This is indeed the real mystery of the ages. Where is this mystery of the ages derived from? Let me explain it now. Why is it a mystery of the ages? Do you know the difficulties of explaining the 3 kayas? The first difficulty is that there are very few explanations about the 3 kayas in the Buddhist sutras, and the explanations vary. The second difficulty is that other explanations about the 3 kayas come from works of Dharma practitioners, for example, some commentaries, which are written by some great Dharma practitioners. Their explanations are different. Only on the definition of the 3 kayas, there are already many explanations. That is why I repeatedly explain the 3 kayas in the Lake of Lotus and other teachings. Do not underestimate my explanation of the 3 kayas. No one has explained them like this before me. They all explain them literally based on the Buddhist sutras and commentaries, without in-depth elaboration. Such explanations have the following shortcomings. Firstly, they lack clarity. Definitions of each kaya are unclear. Secondly, it is not in depth without the rationale to explain how these kayas are constructed. They only explain that one body is essence while the others are applicable. With only so many words, the explanation is complete. For example, the Sutra of Golden Light describes the Dharmakaya as essence body, while the response body is Sambhogakaya, response body is Sambhogakaya, is an applicable body to teach bodhisattvas. This refers to bodhisattvas who have achieved the 10th bhumi or above. Bodhisattvas of the 8th bhumi can only see 1% light of the Sambhogakaya Buddha. Bodhisattvas must achieve the 10th bhumi or above to be able to see Sambhogakayas clearly. So, what are Sambhogakayas? No one has known to explain it. I have read an explanation in English stating that the Sambhogakaya is only used to teach bodhisattvas of the 10th bhumi and above. That is all. But why can only bodhisattvas of the 10th bhumi and above get to see Sambhogakaya Buddhas? Why are bodhisattvas below the 10th bhumi unable to see them? No explanation is given. The explanation is over with only one sentence or two. Sambhogakayas are situated in the Akanistha. At most, this is also said in the explanation. As I said before, Sambhogakaya Buddhas reside in the Akanistha. Where is the Akanistha? As I have said before, there are 18 levels in the form realm within the 3 realms. The highest level is the Moksha. Most Buddhas and Bodhisattvas live in the Akanistha. What is form? Form implies substances, where there are almost none in the Akanistha. Only fine and sparse structures of light exist. That is, only bodies of light exist. There are all bodies made of light in the Akanistha. Nirmanakaya is a body that teaches ordinary beings. The general explanation is about the 3 categories of these Buddhakayas. However, my explanation will be much more detailed. I will provide the underlying principles. I explained then that the Dharmakaya is the most primitive body in the state of oneness in the Dharma realm. That is, this is the essence they refer to. Its realizing and knowing is of the state of oneness. However, they translate it as body, which can mislead people to think that body is material. This is a misunderstanding and misinterpretation. This body does not really have a material body. This body is just a representative term. The Dharmakaya means the realizing and knowing of the state of oneness. When entering the 3 realms from the Dharma realm, it has a lot of energy. And the state it appears at the time is the sparsest material structure, which is called the Sambhogakaya. Due to its powerful energy, the light is extremely dazzling. Even a bodhisattva, who has achieved the 8th bhumi of meditative concentration, can only see 1% of the light. So, I described the energy of the Sambhogakaya is blazing. I used the scientific terms such as energy, oneness, and dualistic or multiplistic state to explain it. This needs to be explained by the realizing and knowing of our own realizations. Before us, no one had explained it in this way. So, many people could not understand it and did not know what they were talking about. What are the Dharmakaya and the Sambhogakaya? One is the essence, and one is the body used to teach bodhisattvas. Where are they from? There was no mention about the foundation of their constructs and underlying principles. When we talked about the Nirmanakaya Buddha, we said that he must lower his energy until it draws more substances to form a material body with high structural density, to be seen by ordinary sentient beings. He can then use this material body to teach them. As such, this body is called the Nirmanakaya. The Sambhogakaya is full of light, while the Dharmakaya is what you cannot see at all. It is the realizing and knowing of the state of oneness. There are no substances to be seen by you. When I explained it this way then, everybody understood the underlying principles. Even if you go through all Buddhist sutras and other people's works, you will not find anyone has explained like this. Because they do not know how to explain it like this, thus many people cannot understand what they are talking about. The third difficulty is their reasoning that cannot make others comprehend inside out, because they only provide a superficial definition, but do not explain the principles and structure in depth. So, you will not understand it. Because the science was underdeveloped in the past, they did not have the required scientific knowledge. Therefore, there was no way for them to comprehend these different states and apply the scientific state of oneness and dualistic or multiplistic states to explain it. There has been no explanation of the change and development of energy either. So, the explanation of the three kayas could not be understood by sentient beings completely and in depth. According to Lankavatara Sutra, for example, pure lands of 10 directions, meaning all Buddhas pure lands in 360 degrees. Among all sentient beings and bodhisattvas, in sentient beings and bodhisattvas, all Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya Buddhas, and Nirmanakaya Buddhas and their variants are all derived from the realm of immeasurable life and ultimate bliss. All the changes of Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, and so on are all derived from the realm of immeasurable life and ultimate bliss. Many people cannot understand and do not know what it is talking about. Why is there an additional realm other than the Dharma realm and the three realms? The realm of immeasurable life and ultimate bliss is the Dharma realm in the state of oneness. It is only using another term to explain the Dharma realm of the state of oneness. Why? Because only the Dharma realm in the state of oneness can have immeasurable life. Any life in the three realms is impermanent. It will be destroyed and disappear one day. References are made in many Buddhist sutras to a Buddha, or a pure land, and how long the lifespan is, 84,000, 80,000, 40,000 or 400,000 years. Why does every Buddha have a lifespan and age? Will they die? Of course, a Buddha will also die. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni had to enter the nirvana and his body was cremated. It means that any material within the three realms will dissolve. This was clearly explained by Lord Buddha Shakyamuni. Immeasurable life means the state of oneness which contains not a thing of two or more than 2 points. So it will not coagulate substance, and it will not be dissolved one day. Hence, it is immeasurable life and will never die. Therefore, the condition of never dying refers to the state of oneness. Will there be a chance it appears in a dualistic or multiplistic state? This will be taught when I explain the Great Perfection. Many people fail to understand that, in the Red Sect, Nyingma school, Guru Rinpoche has a rainbow body that does not die. How is the rainbow body that does not die formed? There is another deeper explanation, which will not be given now. Otherwise, I will need a few more sessions. We are running out of time, so it will not be explained now. In short, the state of oneness means immeasurable life. Ultimate bliss is the bliss of Dharmata, which will only happens in the state of oneness. Any lifespan and happiness within the three realms are impermanent and limited. There are usually 1 or 2 sentences in Buddhist sutras to explain Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, such as the Lankavatara Sutra does that in 2 sentences. You may ask, what exactly are the 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya? They all come from the realm of immeasurable life and ultimate bliss. You will not understand this, so we will explain it with our own realizations, the realizing and knowing ability towards emptiness. Then you will understand. Therefore, only a guru with realizations is able to completely and thoroughly answer these profound questions. I have looked through books, but failed to see anyone who is able to explain it. Against the above-mentioned difficulties, shortcomings and deficiencies, Guru Rinpoche taught Bardo Thodol with reference to under what circumstances one will become which Kaya Buddha. The relevant rationale has since become the mystery of the ages. I have never seen such an explanation in any sutra, tantra, shastra, or any other writing or commentary. I have searched through Chinese and English sutras and have not seen one. Master Yeshe have looked through the English books and could not find one either. It can be said that no one has ever understood the truth in it. They even consider these teachings to be errors and contradictions, because a large number of Dharma practitioners believe that once becoming a Buddha, they will accomplish the 3 kayas at the same time. Is what Guru Rinpoche said untrue? They may think that the Buddhist sutras that have been lost for hundreds of years, buried in earth and later taken out, are fake. Therefore, they think it is false. The Sutra of Golden Light states that virtuous man, all Tathagatas have 3 bodies, all Buddhas have 3 kinds of body. What are the 3? First is Nirmanakaya, second is the response body, or Sambhogakaya, and the third is Dharmakaya. All three kayas are fully possessed as such. It is this statement that once becoming a Buddha, one will fully possess the three kayas. So, you will see that everyone in the Buddhist community explains like this. They only know so much, because the sutras only explain so much. Hence, they only know so much. If you ask them to explain further, how can someone fully possess the three kayas once he or she has become a Buddha? The best answer they can give is, because the Buddha has great power. If you ask them why Guru Rinpoche said so, they will say that it is false. This is because they do not know how to explain. So, they say that these are all false. Absorb and receive Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Buddhas are in such a state fully possessing the three kayas. The state is the realizing and knowing of oneness of the Supreme Perfect Enlightenment. They all possess it in this way. This is the best they can describe. They cannot go any further. How do the three kayas evolve? How are these structures formed? Why can the Sambhogakaya only teach bodhisattvas of the 10th bhumi and above? Some Buddhist sutras do not even mention the 10th bhumi. Why does the Sambhogakaya only teach bodhisattvas and not ordinary sentient beings? Why can only the Nirmanakaya teach ordinary sentient beings? There is no explanation for all of these. They only know one thing, that is, the three kayas fully possessed. Everybody says so. Why are you not saying the same, then? Guru Rinpoche provided these teachings, including Bardo Thodol, in the 8th century. After Guru Rinpoche left Tibet, Langdharma persecuted Buddhism. Langdharma was a BTS Ainpo, after Guru Rinpoche left Tibet. BTS Ainpo means king. He wanted to destroy Buddhism and stipulated that everyone was not allowed to practice the Buddhist Dharma, and all monks must return to the secular life. The process lasted 100 to 200 years, during which Guru Rinpoche's teaching was in a state of intermittent circulation. All was lost. Some had to be hidden in the ground to avoid being burned. 200 years later, new sects, or new schools, emerged. What are these new sects? Tibetan Buddhism's Red Sect, Nyingma school, is an ancient sect. Its Tibetan word, Nyingma, means ancient. It is the oldest sect. The period is referred by historians as the early dissemination period. The early dissemination period refers to the period before the new sects emerged. Some also say that prior to the period of Langdharma persecuted Buddhism, is the early dissemination period. Nevertheless, the time when the oldest sect, Nyingma school, were introduced by Guru Rinpoche was during the early dissemination period. The establishment of the Samo schools, that is, the new sects, is called the later dissemination period, including Kodam, Jonang, Sakya, Kagyu, the White Hat sect, and Gelug, the Yellow Hat sect. Historians refer these as the later dissemination period. The two periods are 1 to 200 more years apart. Since none of them understood the truth of this mystery of the ages, and did not understand Guru Rinpoche's teachings, each of them re-established their own teachings, and became independent new schools. Some teachings were lost. Even if they were not lost, they were not understood. Under what circumstances does someone become a Buddha? It is clearly stated in the sutras that he will possess all three kayas once he has become a Buddha. Why did Guru Rinpoche say this? They ignored when they could not understand. So, they set up their own new lineage systems, forming several new sects. This is how the new schools evolved and re-established their own teachings. Of course, these teachings came from the sutras said by the Buddha, and some came from the surviving teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. They rearranged, reinterpreted, and rebuilt. Therefore, they could not preserve the essence of Guru Rinpoche's teaching. On teaching and practice, their teaching could not compete that of Guru Rinpoche. For example, the teachings on how to apply what Dharma method when precious opportunities emerged in each of the stage after death, so as to enable one to accomplish what kind of Buddhakaya. The new sects do not have these teachings. They do not have the teachings on how to use what kind of views to practice in order to accomplish what kind of Buddhakaya too. Many other shortcuts and precious teachings have been lost. It had been several hundreds of years between the 8th century and the 14th century, until a great treasure revealer, Karma Lingpa, an incarnate of one of Guru Rinpoche's 25 grand disciples, predicted personally by Guru Rinpoche that he would in the future take out a series of important teachings from the rocks, including the essential Dharma teachings of Bardo Thodol, to benefit sentient beings. But still, because of the age, the explanation is lost. Only the original manuscript was regained, but no one understood it, or had the required realizations to understand it. As a result, no one could resolve the mystery of the ages I have just mentioned. In other words, they were not up to the level, the realizing and knowing ability towards emptiness. Realizations are the realizing and knowing from the experience of emptiness, not the supernatural power you think, some funny magic tricks. Realizations are a kind of realizing and knowing from the experience of emptiness. Those are indeed the realizations. Please do not be mistaken. I will give more in-depth explanations about realizations in the next session. I have not disclosed the name of this Rinpoche. Why am I hiding his name? Because we met in 2004 and several times before that. We have a friendship with him which is very precious. I do not wish to lose or ruin the friendship. So, I have not disclosed his name. Back then Master Yeshe and I were both very young, and so was he. When he first came out to preach the Holy Dharma, he passed through Hong Kong, and was received by Master Yeshe and I on behalf of Master Lao. I have included a group photo of the three of us in the second issue of The Light of Lotus. Remember and make no mistake, it is the Light of Lotus, not the Lake of Lotus. Later he became one of the most famous Rinpoche in the world, because he knew English and Tibetan, and the Holy Dharma he taught could be understood easily. So, he became very famous. In addition, he is the reincarnation of a great Rinpoche, so in terms of the Dharma teaching, it is an advantage that he understands English. Also, in terms of the level, he is very famous globally, because he is the reincarnation of a great Rinpoche. So, I must not disclose his name to avoid any mutual misunderstanding. This person's email also includes a link to this Rinpoche's webpage. Now I want to explain the first question, about the mystery of the ages. That is why I mentioned this Rinpoche, who we met from time to time before. What I remember most was our meeting in 2004 when the three of us dined in a Chinese restaurant. Not long after he sat down, he asked us a question. He said, "Knowing that you two have been working hard to propagate the Dharma for so many years and knowing that you have done a lot of things, I admire you very much. But I want to know one thing now, what sort of things would you like to do in the future? Can you tell me? Perhaps I can help you." Since I can only speak Cantonese, not English, I replied in Cantonese. I would like to reinterpret all the Buddhist Holy Dharma. After Master Yeshe translated it into English, he looked very surprised and said, "Do you know that this is very difficult? Do you know that it takes several generations to complete, and it is a difficult task to complete?" I wondered why he said that. Because I did not know how to speak English, and I was afraid to trouble Master Yeshe with the translation. They chatted for a long time. Master Yeshe did not translate all of the conversation for me, so I did not know what they were talking about. I only knew that there might be some misunderstanding. A few years later, he did use the foundation he established to undertake a large project, that is, to retranslate some Buddhist Holy Dharma. When I heard the news, I almost clapped my hands. I admire him very much. It is so great to still have a dedicated Dharma propagator in this world. He can do all the things I cannot do, what I want to do, but do not have the ability to do it. Only he has the ability to do it in this world, and he has the will to set his mind on doing it. I admire him very much. So, I said to Master Yeshe, "You must have translated incorrectly then. Interpretation is different from translation. Interpretation is something that I have been doing since I started preaching the Dharma. Interpretation means that I would like to re-explain some Buddhist Holy Dharma, especially some Buddhist terms such as the three kayas. There is a need for me to reinterpret them. The Buddhist sutras and a number of commentaries have only given a very superficial definition to the three kayas without a deeper explanation. If I do not explain it in depth, ordinary Buddhist learners will not understand it. Why becomes a Buddha? Based on what principles do I become a Buddha? The Heart Sutra states that there are neither wisdom nor attainment. What does it mean exactly? They will not understand. Reinterpretation means, for example, the interpretation of the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the explanation of the three kayas. I need to explain all of them again. I also add a lot of things. This is called the reinterpretation. I feel that this will enable Dharma practitioners to understand the genuine Buddhist holy Dharma and achieve success in practice. Since the times of Buddha Shakyamuni and Guru Padmanabhava, it has been more than 1,000 or 2,000 years. Many people read, but cannot understand the Buddhist sutras, so they practice the holy Dharma blindly. For this reason I need to reinterpret the holy Dharma. But Master Yeshe said that he did not translate incorrectly at the time. He did say interpretation. It may be that the other party misunderstood it as translation. So, this Rinpoche launched the initiative to retranslate Buddhist sutras. There is another point that I admire this Rinpoche very much. He organized a large project called 84,000, translating the words of the Buddha. Many Buddhist sutras have been translated, although most of them are only in English for the time being. There are very few Chinese versions. He also has another project called the Kumarajiva Project. What is the Kumarajiva Project? It is to translate and proofread the Tibetan Tripitaka against the Chinese Tripitaka. Because the Chinese Buddhist sutras have been translated into several versions, the content of each version is different. It is difficult to tell which version is authentic or not. It is also difficult to know what is missing in each version. The cross-checking against the Tibetan Buddhist sutras will tell if there is any difference in our translation and interpretation. If we are able to find the difference, we may have the opportunity to quickly succeed in the Dharma practice. These are all very important. In the time of the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, it was very easy for a Dharma practitioner to become an arhat. It was easy to accomplish the rainbow body and become a Buddha in Guru Padmanabhava's era. Many Kaya Buddhas were accomplished. Therefore, I think this is really a pioneering work. I admire this Rinpoche very much, so I want to hide his name. If we have a chance to meet each other again in the future, I will explain to him why my views are different from his. I am afraid that it might affect our friendship, so I will not disclose his name. This Rinpoche found the Trikaya Sutra, or Sutra of the Three Bodies, only in Tibetan. How do I know this? Since I received this email, I have felt that I need to reinterpret the three kayas in greater detail. But I cannot go into too much detail prior to teaching the Great Perfection. I will explain it in greater detail when I talk about the Great Perfection. At the same time, when I answer this person's email, I need to talk about the three kayas. If there is a sutra that has already clarified this mystery of the ages, I can save the time answering it. It would be great if there was one. I could have just referred to it. So, I asked Master Yeshe to search English books on related topics, as I could not find any relevant book in Chinese. He found the Trikaya Sutra, or Sutra of the Three Bodies. It turned out that this Rinpoche had recently translated it into English. Only the English version is available. The Chinese version is yet to be published. This Trikaya Sutra, or Sutra of the Three Bodies, is from the Tibetan Tripitaka, Derge Kangyu, Volume 68, Derge edition, pages 56 to 57. This sutra is very short, with only a few paragraphs. I had great expectations at the time and requested Master Yeshe to translate it into Chinese. It turned out to be very short. And it, like other sutras, explains in a superficial way. But there is a little extra. I will explain the four kayas when I teach the Great Perfection in the future. By then, I will explain the Svabhavika Kaya. Now I will explain one of the passages, which already accounts for most of the sutra. It is stated like this. Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha said to the Buddha, "How should we understand the three bodies of the Tathagata?" Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha asked the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni what the three kayas were. The Buddha replied to Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha, "Noble son, you should understand the three bodies of the Tathagata like this. You should understand the Buddha's three bodies like this. Dharmakaya should be regarded as the essence of Tathagata. Same explanation is given all around the world, nothing special. Sambhogakaya should be regarded as the essence of the Bodhisattva. Some people may not understand this sentence. Unless you know that Sambhogakaya is made of light that can only be seen by Bodhisattvas of the 10th Bhumi and above. As such, the Sambhogakaya is dedicated to teaching the Dharma practice for Bodhisattvas of the 10th Bhumi and above. If you already know our reinterpretation of the Sambhogakaya, you will understand this sentence. Sambhogakaya should be regarded as the essence of the Bodhisattva. But if you have not heard our detailed explanation of the reinterpretation, you will fail to understand the literal explanation in this way. Does it mean that the Sambhogakaya has bodhicitta? Or is the Sambhogakaya more compassionate? You will remain puzzled after pondering over this sentence 100 times. Nirmanakaya should be regarded as the essence of ordinary beings dealing with their behavior faithfully. If you have not listened to our teaching, you will not understand this. What does it mean by Nirmanakaya should be regarded as the essence of ordinary beings dealing with their behavior faithfully? What do it mean? You have to spend a lifetime, at least a few decades, pondering until eventually you want to know how to apply the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. How to apply the principles to the Dharma practice so that you can accomplish it faster. There is no need for you to spend more time researching, because racking your brains you will not even understand the definition. Is the Trikaya Sutra finished just like that? Yes, it ends its explanation just like that. It is difficult to search for the explanation of the three kayas even if you go through all books and Buddhist sutras. It is hard to find the answer. That is why it is the mystery of the ages. It is normal that no one has known to explain it. Why did this Rinpoche want to find this Trikaya Sutra? It was because he did not understand this question, or know this mystery of the ages. But he wanted to know the answer very much. Having had the Trikaya Sutra translated and failed to find the answer, he wrote a letter to ask. He could not make an inquiry with his real name, so he asked someone to email to ask. He also needed to find someone to write in Chinese, because he knew that I do not understand English. So, he asked someone to send me a letter in Chinese. It was really clever of him. So, I replied to this Chinese email. I felt the content of this letter, no one would be interested to ask, and no one would be interested to know. There are things no one would understand. Only a Rinpoche of this level would know how to ask questions like this. Therefore, I thought that this letter was asked by him. What he worried most is that I had not read the dozen pages of his views concerning the scandal of Sojal Rinpoche. He was keen to know whether there was any conflict between our views. Obviously, there is a conflict. I already said in the first lecture that I disagreed. But can we discuss it after reading that article of his? We will leave this until some time later. He would very much like to see whether the disciples who were valued by Kyabhya Chatral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, the world's top great perfection practitioner and achiever who personally wrote to certify them, can answer this question. Do you know that Kyabhya Chatral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche was very strict? People dared not to ask him more questions. If you did not know and answered the question incorrectly, His Holiness would scold you, and very seriously. Even senior Rinpoche have been scolded by him. Even some great Rinpoche dared not ask him questions. Some great Rinpoche hoped that His Holiness Kyabhya Chatral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche could certify them, but he never certified anyone, only us. This Rinpoche would feel strange why Kyabhya Chatral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche gave no notice of so many great Rinpoche in Tibet, but of you and certified you, two unknown Chinese figures. Then he watched the second lecture of our Compassion and Bodhicitta series and realized a few things, that no one would know and teach these practice methods. He realized that it was an unknown treasure. You wondered from which book these practice methods might have come. I can tell you that you will find none, after going through all the books and Buddhist sutras. These practice methods come from an experience from our own realizations of Dharma practice. This is none in the books, of course. No one has taught it before. He thought that I might understand it, so he asked someone to write a letter on his behalf to ask this mystery of the ages. He was hoping that I would be able to solve the myth. Ordinary people will not know how to ask these profound questions. I will answer the question now. There are three issues in this mystery of the ages. Firstly, since once one becomes a Buddha, one will fully possess the three kayas. So why differentiates different kaya Buddha one will achieve in different circumstances after death? This concerns the three key instructions after death as depicted in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Then, why did Guru Rinpoche write a book entitled The Precious Garland of the Secret Mantrayana Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment Commentary, stating that different views accomplishing different kaya Buddhas? This is the second mystery of the ages. Since once one becomes a Buddha, one will fully possess the three kayas. So why differentiates different views and practice methods to accomplish different kaya Buddhas? The third mystery of the ages is that since once one becomes a Buddha, one will accomplish all the three kayas at the same time. Why is there additional Svabhavika kaya Buddha? Why did Guru Rinpoche say that if you practice the great perfection, you will become the Svabhavika kaya Buddha? Why is this? Are three kaya Buddhas not enough? It is confusing. There is the fourth. It is really confusing. Secondly, why do some sects say that there are only two kinds of body while some say that there are three kinds of body, and some say that there are four kinds of body? Thirdly, different sutras also have different statements. Why is this? Fourthly, what is the rationale for various classifications, and can they integrate with each other? Among these different statements, are there any mutual points? The third mystery of the ages will be explained later when I talk about the great perfection, because I will need to provide an in-depth explanation of the three kayas. The first and second questions can be answered now. Okay, let's first resolve the first mystery of the ages. That is, since once one becomes a Buddha, one will fully possess the three kayas. Why differentiates different kaya Buddha one will achieve in different circumstances after death? I will also explain the second question. That is, since once one becomes a Buddha, one will fully possess the three kayas. So why differentiates different views and practice methods to become different kaya Buddhas? I have already said that whether you use the union of bliss and emptiness, the union of luminosity and emptiness, or the union of illusion and emptiness to enter the state of oneness to become a Buddha, you will fully possess the three kayas, Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. However, there will be differences in whether you have the choice to abide in the Dharma realm without manifesting the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya. If you use different methods to become different kaya Buddhas, you will have different choices. I will now use the three keys in after death to explain it. During the stage of the bardo of dying, that awareness of the Dharma nature, bodhicitta, or perfect enlightenment, will appear for the first and the second time. One may recognize its appearance once or twice. If you can grasp it, you can become a Dhammakaya Buddha. When you are in the stage of the bardo of dying, you are already dead. Does the physical body still exist? Even if it has not been cremated, it no longer functions. You are already dead. Your body, the physical body, can no longer function, because you are already dead. Your physical body is already dead within the three realms, and can no longer function. If you become a Buddha at that moment, can you choose to abide in the Dharma realm and not to come out? Of course, you can choose not to leave. If you choose not to leave, there is no need for you to emanate the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya. Because the reason for manifesting the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya is to teach sentient beings. If you decide not to enter the three realms and abide in the Dharma realm, this is okay. Unless you have already made a vow prior to becoming a Buddha, after I become a Buddha, I will definitely come out to save sentient beings. I will definitely enter the three realms again. If you ever make this vow, then it will become part of your mental consciousness. So, when you become a Buddha, you will come out. However, you have the option to choose. You can choose not to come out. Once you have become a Dharmakaya Buddha, you have this ability. But there is one condition that needs to be met, that is, you do not have a physical body existing in the three realms. The second is to become the Sambhogakaya Buddha. There are 4 phases in the stage of bardo of Dharmata, and you would continue to use your energy to pull substances forming a thinly structured body. The Sambhogakaya is made up of some light So, if you are able to recognize this light, you can merge into the light to become a Sambhogakaya Buddha. Imagine if you attain Buddhahood at this stage. Do you have a physical body in the three realms? Although you are dead, you have formed a Sambhogakaya, which is a body made of light. While this body you form in the three realms is very sparse material, which is just some light, but this light body made of very sparse material has already been established. After attaining Buddhahood in the Dharma realm, can you say, I do not want this light body. Let it die? This is impossible. You must know that you will not do this. So, you have to go back to the Sambhogakaya. If you attain Buddhahood in this way, you will become a Sambhogakaya Buddha. Your awareness has already been restored to perfect enlightenment, and you have truly entered into the state of oneness. Your realizing and knowing has already entered into the state of oneness to become a Buddha. But your Sambhogakaya has also been formed, too. You regain the perfect enlightenment at this stage, so you become a Sambhogakaya Buddha. It is impossible for you to stay in the Dharma realm and not come out. You must come out and return to the state of Sambhogakaya. There is no choice. The third is that you have connected to a body with a high density of material structure, and have become a Nirmanakaya, during the stage of the bardo of becoming. It is at that moment the Dharma nature reveals, which enables you to restore the realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment, to become a Buddha. But your Nirmanakaya has been formed. Can you choose not to leave and to abide in the Dharma realm, and let the Nirmanakaya die? Of course not, because at that moment the high-density physical body within the three realms has been re-established. You cannot choose to abide in the Dharma realm and not come out. You must return to the Nirmanakaya. To give an example, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni is a Nirmanakaya Buddha. When he became a Buddha, his body could still function, and he was not yet dead yet. He became a Buddha while sitting under the Bodhi tree. That the body sat under the Bodhi tree after he became a Buddha was a Nirmanakaya Buddha. Were there Sambhogakaya and Dharmakaya? Of course, there were. Once one becomes a Buddha, one will fully possess the three kayas. So, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni states in the sutra that the name of his Sambhogakaya is Rokkana, while the name of his Dharmakaya is Vairochana. So, there are. The question has been answered. However, he had to return to the three realms due to the unfinished business with the three realms. He had no right to choose not to return. There was unfinished business in the three realms. When was it finished? It finished when he entered the Nirvana, leaving behind only some teachings. His physical body has gone. He cannot stay for you to ask questions. What do you not understand? Just ask. I will answer you. This is impossible. He no longer has unfinished business with the three realms. Indeed, you have used up your virtuous karmic rewards, so you do not have the virtuous karmic rewards to enable you to ask questions. So, there is no more. You must see clearly what Guru Rinpoche said, that what Buddha you become follows the view in your Dharma practice. Why is that? If you base your Dharma practice on the view of the mind only, do you not visualize yourself to be a deity? You visualize yourself to be Buddha Amitabha, or Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. You use your mental consciousness to create a body with forms. So, with such a mental consciousness you continuously hope to enter emptiness and become a Buddha. And you need to work with the situation after death, too. Therefore, the level of difficulty will be much higher. Because there is a part missing in the emptiness you visualize. You have the neither existence aspect in the oral pith instruction, but not the aspect of nor voidness. So, the level of difficulty will be much higher. It is necessary to work with the state at the stage of the bardo of becoming so as to enable you to become a Buddha. In the end, you can only become a Nirmanakaya Buddha, because there are things missing. This explanation alone, there are things missing so you become a Nirmanakaya Buddha, has never been given by anyone. You will never find it even if you look through all the books. You see that I said it very easily, but do you know that even some people have spent their entire lives practicing the holy Dharma in caves fail to know why it happens like this? What is the view of the middle way? As I said earlier, why can you only accomplish the Sambhogakaya Buddha, if you adopt the view of the middle way in your Dharma practice. Because the core of the whole set of rituals is cultivating the completion stage, which teaches you to move from the practice of with forms to those of without forms. That is, it still has with forms before moving into without forms. How can we go from with forms to without forms smoothly? Only in one situation, and that is the material structure of your physical body needs to be extremely sparse, so that you can easily go from with forms to without forms. However, you cannot enter into the state of without forms if your body density is just a little bit higher. That is why I teach my disciples to only visualize light when visualizing the deity. Do not visualize the physical object, otherwise, you will find it difficult transforming. Of course, I did not talk about it in detail. I am only explaining it now in passing. It is because the density of the body structure is required to be sparse, and thus it must be the body made of light. If you want to use the light body, a body with forms, to enter the state of emptiness, you can only become the Sambhogakaya Buddha. Because a physical structure of the body has already been formed. The third one is realizing and sensing, the state of the union of bliss and emptiness. This is the third level empowerment, which none of you would understand. I did not intend to explain it in detail, although I have already explained it a little. It is to obtain balance through realizing and sensing. One can practice by applying the oral pith instruction of the emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, and thus one is able to become a Dharmakaya Buddha without the need of a body. Without the body, there is only a kind of realizing and sensing to balance. There is no body, so you can become a Dharmakaya Buddha. The fourth is the view of the great perfection. Why can it become the Svabhavikakaya Buddha? I have not yet explained the Svabhavikakaya Buddha. Please refer to the book Emptiness, Neither Existence Nor Voidness, page 115, published by the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International, for relevant explanation. Same explanation is also given by others. I will give a detailed explanation in the future. At that time, I will explain why by practicing in this way, you can directly realize and attain the Dharma nature, and thus become Svabhavikakaya Buddha. What is the difference between this Buddhakaya and the other three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya? I will explain these later. If someone knows how to explain these, it is best for him or her to publish a special book so that when I try to find the relevant information, by looking through the books, I do not have to work so hard. The third mystery of the ages, one that is derived from attaining Buddhahood, will be explained in detail in the future. When I finish teaching the Diamond Sutra in the future, I will teach the Great Perfection, and it will be necessary to explain in detail different Buddhakayas when one becomes a Buddha. So, you can understand the underlying principles. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand the principles of the Great Perfection. I will explain them at that time. Now look at this letter again. Let me explain this point before the lecture ends. His second question concerning the fallacies of the crazy wisdom has already been explained in the first lecture of the visualization practice of compassion and Bodhicitta series. This Sogyal Rinpoche is the author of the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. This person asks me of the different views by this Rinpoche and mine. This Rinpoche would like to know what I think about his article. Let me explain one point now. Our starting points are different from each other. I am not a high-level Rinpoche. I do not need to balance the interests of different sects or schools. I only do things for the benefit of sentient beings. I will come out to explain if I feel that I can help sentient beings become a Buddha, help them not to be deceived, not to be bullied and not to be abused anymore. I only explain it for the benefit of sentient beings. Actually, I do not consider my own interests, my own safety, or the interests among sects. Because I think that the creation of a religious denomination should rely on your theory, detailed analysis, and correct practice to truly lead people onto correct path towards successful Dharma practice, and enable them to reach their destinations and accomplish their goals. These are the correct denominations. If some sect has gone astray with some stuff been deviated, why should I not do it if it can be supported so that it can get back on track and become a correct sect that helps sentient beings? I will certainly do it. Why do many people not do it? Because they are unable to do it. When asked to explain the three kayas, they can only provide some superficial explanation copied from Buddhist sutras and commentaries. If you go further and ask deeper questions, none of them know how to answer. If they do not know how to answer themselves, how can they break the boundaries of denominational differences? So, some have suggested that we must merge the 4 sects into one and launch the initiative 4 schools into one. Then it is necessary to be proficient in all the teachings and their respective essences of the 4 schools. It is also necessary to resolve those mystery of the ages and understand why Guru Rinpoche taught in this way before. But why did the new sects not follow Guru Rinpoche's teachings and created some stray teachings on their own? What they created were things that deviated from the right track and also lacked a lot of connotations. Why did you give up the most essential part? It is because they failed to understand and explain. Subsequently, they did not know how to practice the Holy Dharma. If you do not know how to practice the Holy Dharma, and do not have the keys to grasp the opportunities after death, your Dharma practice is doomed to fail. As a person of such a low status, I do not need to worry about the rise and fall of sects when doing things. I do not need to care about the interests among you. But I will always want to help you. The only way to help you is to preach the correct principles. Having understood them, you should not oppose to these essential teachings. Instead, you should add them into your own denomination and correct it so that your sect can be carried on. If you refuse to make corrections and continue to deceive others, people will see through you eventually. Without me, there is bound to be another person who understands these teachings and tells the truth, as boldly as I am now. You will have to face it sooner or later. Since you have to face it sooner or later, it is better to face it now. So, I analyze things regardless of sects, or taking account of friendship. This Rinpoche is of a high level, and has to care about the interests and the balance of all sects. Otherwise, once he is attacked, he will no longer be able to maintain such a high position and return to a low status like me. Like me, I have always been in a low-level position. It does not matter if I cannot climb to a high level, but it does matter to change from a high-level position down to a low-level one, doesn't it? Did I have any friendship with Sogyal Rinpoche? I want to tell another story. In 1989, Master Lao took Master Yeshe and I to Nepal to participate in the Dharma ceremony of His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche II's burial. There was an occasion when the host was hosting a meal and invited Master Lao and his closest disciples for a meal. So, Master Lao took us to this dinner party with very few people. I met this Sogyal Rinpoche at the banquet. Initially, I was not interested in knowing his name, because I did not know English. Even if he was introduced to me, I would have forgotten his name. But he did this one thing, which left a very deep and very good impression on me. The reason was that the temple where we ate was far away from the gate. When we were about to leave, he was like Li Lianying in the Qing dynasty walking with the Empress Dowager Cixi. Li Lianying bent down 90 degrees and bowed, reaching out to support the Empress Dowager while she was walking. This Sogyal Rinpoche bowed at 90 degrees like this, stretched out his hand for Master Lao, supported and walking Master Lao all the way to the gate. I was stunned and wondered who this person was. Why did he pay such a great respect to Master Lao? Of course, I was delighted that someone respected my root guru so much. What was he? There could not be any unimportant people to be invited to come for this dinner event. So, I asked Master Yeshe who this person was. He told me that he was Sogyal Rinpoche. He was quite a good man. Later, he published the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying and became very famous all over the world. He once came to Hong Kong to hold a Dharma lecture, and needed a Buddhist talent, who could translate from English into Cantonese. No one agreed to do the job at the time. So, I said this to Master Yeshe, even though you're also a Dharma preaching guru, but he once served our Master Lao so respectfully, and was so kind to Master Lao, why don't you be his real-time translator, as a reward to his kindness? As long as you don't say your name, no one will know. Just walk directly into the translation room, so that no one will see you. Because the translation room is situated somewhere very high up. The seats of the venue they rent are like stairs descending diagonally from the top with the stage at the bottom. The translation room is at the highest point. So, no one will see you. Go and help him with the real-time translation. So, Master Yeshe translated real-time for this Sojal Rinpoche. As you can see, we had a good impression of him. But in the end, such a big incident happened with so many sentient beings being hurt. In fact, I did not have any friendship with him, thus I spoke frankly and went to the points directly, because I was concerned about the interests of sentient beings. So, this person in the email asked me why my views were different from dozens of pages article written by this Rinpoche. Because our starting points are different. He goes round and round like wandering in a garden. The final conclusion is, no need to be meddling. Let's reduce a big trouble into a small one, and a small one into nothing. You've also benefited from many things he taught you. Let's end it like this. Let's stop the sectarian disputes. No need to be meddling. He keeps going round and round in the garden, as if nothing has happened. I will not take people to the garden. I will directly say that this kind of behavior is wrong. I cannot connive these Rinpoche's continued sexual abuse, sexual assault, and beating of his own disciples. Some disciples were violently treated and beaten and became disabled. I come to learn Buddhism in the hope of gaining enlightenment, not to be disabled. If disability enables me to become a Buddha, I will not need to practice the holy Dharma in a cave or sit meditate. I only need to be beaten by you. I thought, what is the reason for this? Why continue to use such garden-wandering tricks and methods to explain these incorrect truths? The second half of the email is really shocking. It says that you must go crazy before becoming a Buddha. As you can imagine, our starting points are so different. As a result, our views are also different. In fact, our views differ tremendously. I do not hold these views, so my views are different from what he wrote. I expect that I will offend him and damage our friendship. But I hope he knows that I admire him very much, as he is able to do such a great merit to help sentient beings. Master Xuanzang required assistance from the leaders of the country to be able to set up a large translation center then. He spent most of his youth and it required a great deal of hard work to translate so many Buddhist sutras he brought back. This Rinpoche is now retranslating the sutras. His merit is as great as Master Xuanzang. This is a great merit. So, I still want to say that I admire this Rinpoche very much. However, our starting points and views are different. So, please excuse me, I am afraid that I will say the same. In order to save sentient beings, I will still say, if you come across these masters, you must leave them immediately. If you still want to be beaten by them, it is due to your own foolishness, without the realizing and knowing. It is impossible for you to cultivate the realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment. It is impossible to enter into the Dharma realm. You can only stay and continue to be beaten in the three realms. Remember, the incorrect views will mislead sentient beings. In order to protect sentient beings, I must stand up boldly and correct these views, so that they will not continue to be wrong. Otherwise, there will be another Rinpoche to sexually abuse disciples in a few years. You can imagine that it will be impossible for our esoteric Buddhism not to be considered as heresy and collapse. So, I want to save esoteric Buddhism, not that person, nor certain denominations. Those that can save sentient beings should be passed on, and those that cannot save sentient beings should not. Isn't that right? He also asked the story of the Kagyu gurus, saying that the crazy wisdom is the third stage prior to becoming the Buddha. He also questioned how the Buddha could be injured if he had great supernatural powers. Regarding these phenomena, they often use the word manifestation to argue with me. People have been sent to argue with me directly. This shows great differences in our views. In order to protect us, His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche said this to us: you must take good care of your Dharma center, the association you have established. You must 100% protect the views you propagate, and not allow others to come in to talk nonsense, so that your views are also distorted. Even if some high-level Rinpoche, who want to preach the holy Dharma at your association, and make it impossible for you to refuse, you must not agree to it. There will be a great impact if their views are very different from yours. All of your disciples will definitely follow Rinpoche, who are famous with a high position. You do not have any title, so do not allow them to come to your association to teach Dharma. In order to protect you, I teach you a method. If anyone wants to come to your association to teach the Dharma, ask them to come to me first. That is, your guru has issued an order. You are required to have the personal letter and signature that is stamped by your guru. His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche had his own stamp. You can only allow them to come after my permission. In fact, no one dared to ask His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche to personally write a letter. If you wish to ask His Holiness to write a certification letter to come to preach the Dharma at our association, you would definitely be scolded by His Holiness. It was very difficult to meet with His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, let alone to speak and ask His Holiness questions. It would be even more difficult to ask His Holiness to write a letter. This would be impossible. This method worked very well. His Holiness told us that apart from his personally stamped and signed letter, he also urged us to telephone to verify in case of forged letters. If it was true, then we could allow this person to come to the association to teach Dharma. Otherwise, we should never allow it. In fact, by saying so we declined many people including several famous ones. To maintain our views not to be distorted, I used the method Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche taught us, which really worked. Every time I said that I needed to have a letter stamped and personally signed by Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche, followed by telephoning to confirm it, they would be scared and did not dare to mention it again. As such, I have successfully protected the views of the association, which would never be messed up. You can imagine how much His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche valued views. Do you know that if your views are wrong, you will never succeed in your Dharma practice? You will fail your Dharma practice even if you practice it until you die. And there will be serious consequences. The answers to these two questions will be left until the next session. Today's lecture ends here.